I think it's better for people to be Roman Catholic than, let's say, woke left.
True.
So I'd rather have that.
You think woke left is the worst religion? Or is it
I
Islam?
think Islam is worse.
Oh, my two favorite topics: anti-Semitism and the N-word. Let's talk about it.
So for me, my position is that when you start hurting people physically, not just their feelings and emotions, but you physically hurt them, like kill them or
Yeah.
break a limb or whatever, and or you take their property, their private property, or you harm their family. To me, that's bad. But calling a Jew a bad name or a black person a bad name, is it bad? Yeah, but it's not that bad.
You're right.
Where
It's
am
not
I
as bad
wrong?
as it's not as bad as physical violence.
Right. And so when I watched the Piers Morgan show, where that black guy, what's his
Oh
name?
yeah, Mark Lamont Hill.
Mark Lamont Hill.
Don't say the N-word. It was like, oh my god, like
Like
that's that's
when
an
I saw that,
infantile reaction.
yeah, when I saw that, I viewed him as I viewed that particular individual as inferior emotionally to
Correct.
most
Mark Lamont
people.
Hill here's the thing, and you could see how quickly he calmed down afterwards. He was just like, thank you, which meant he clearly was
He was
he worked
virtue
himself
signaling.
up. Correct. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a thing of like, was he really experiencing the emotion? Yeah, but like he knows that like he needed to play the role of he said, I'm the victim of a. First, he called the other black dude an Uncle Tom. So he first called the other guy a racial slur, and then he said, "Don't say a racial slur because I'll be a victim of it. I'll be harmed by it." It's like, dude, you
Yeah.
are a fucking
Well,
child.
that's an attribute of what I think is woke, is this type of victim blaming. I'm being oppressed.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm special.
Yep.
Hold me in your arms and tell me you love me.
Feel sorry for him.
Feel sorry for us. Yeah, you're learning.
It's a good Dougism. It's a good PineCreekism.
The thing is, in the United States, the woke left actually hurts African Americans, and I separate African Americans from black people by this feel sorry for ism.
Wait,
They
what do
do
you mean you
way more
separate
harm than
African
good.
Americans from black people?
Not all black people are African American.
You mean like Nigerian immigrants?
Yeah, like for example, the guy that was on Piers Morgan, he's from India, right? Or where's he from? Middle East?
Mark
The
Lamont
guy that
Hill?
was Uncle Tom.
Oh, Myron? Oh, yeah. He's from. I think he said on that show. I think Sudan or something like that. Maybe I could be wrong.
Yeah, like so I would think most African Americans would not consider him African American, definitely, and most wouldn't even consider him
There's a
black.
term for it. It's called ADOS, American Descendant of Slaves, to identify the original American black population.
Yeah, ADOS.
ADOS, American
Well,
Descendants of Slaves.
the best way to help ADOS people is to treat them like anybody else.
True.
And basically tough love this is my opinion, but I think tough love works better in a case like this. And things are not as bad as it seems. Like, sure, 6% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murders. But there are many African Americans in this country who of course don't murder, don't do crime, raise beautiful families.
The example I always go to, because there's a lot of this white supremacist shit going on. There's a lot of this Nazi shit going on Twitter. Which, by the way, I used to be very averse to saying like Nazis are out there, because the term had been overused, right? It's like racist. Even if I believe someone's racist, I don't like I avoid publicly saying that they're racist, because that term is just so useless, because it's syndrome. You seen The Incredibles?
Yeah, of course. I love it.
When everyone's super?
You're talking about My Family?
No, syndrome.
Oh yeah, when everybody is super, then no one is.
And when everyone's racist,
then no one is. And
exactly.
That's exactly what's happening.
Right.
Can you play that clip of that woman basically saying, I'm a racist, and owning it? Because I think that is because that's gone viral, and I think that will it's sort of a landmark, and I think American society today, that being called a racist has almost no value and no meaning anymore.
Well, I think it's still, that lady is an idiot. I know you're talking about Lily Gaddis, I think her name is.
An idiot or a marketing genius? I'll ask that again.
No, yeah, idiot. You can even see how she like stumbles over her words when asked that. Let's see. Are you a racist?
White people have been under attack for years. It's been systematic racism. As much as Black people and people of color want to talk about systematic racism in the United States, it's quite the opposite. They get preferential treatment when it comes to getting a job, when it comes to getting into colleges. White people, on the other hand, have been getting attacked relentlessly. Look at 2016 and BLM and all the riots. We just had to sit back and watch people burn down our cities and do nothing about it. So the way to fight back against essentially this anti-white hatred that's been systemically, ingrained in U.S. society is with white unity. We don't see white unity on.
Hang on.
You know how she got her. You know how she got popular?
Yeah, through TikTok, I think.
And do you know what it was that got her popular?
Using the N-word, right?
Yes, yeah. She just said the N-word, and now she's like a commentator, and she's dressing up and like, we need white unity. So it's kind of like she went from literally just one day. This is how the world works. One day you make a TikTok and you say the N-word as a white woman because you're being edgy. And then 6 months or a year later, you're like, we need white unity. It's like you're now a spokesperson for.
You know what's interesting about
white unity?
What's interesting is if you just easily, like, if you're a woke left person, or let's be courteous, a very highly compassionate person who votes Democrat, and you're listening to this white woman rant about white unity, all you have to do is change a few words and say, if she was talking about we need more Black unity in America. Of course, you as a left-wing liberal progressive, you say that is so good. Yeah. All right. So that is so great. So basically, if you are a Democrat listening and this bothers you, then basically you're saying you're a racist. Okay. You, the listeners, the racist, because you're saying, oh, it's good if Black people say this type of rhetoric, but bad if white people say it because of systemic racism that goes back 300 years.
Doug, because what you just said. If some people can say Black unity and it's good, and if a white person says white unity, it's bad. Logically, no reason to look at them differently. I mean, you can make a logical argument, blah, blah, whatever. But here's the thing: it's the same thing with like the swastika versus the hammer and sickle. It's a better argument. The hammer and sickle is objectively as bad as the swastika. I mean, in terms of what it represents, right? Like a genocidal regime and the number of people killed. Arguably, the hammer and sickle is worse in terms of death count and torture camps and death camps, right? Because it's Maoist China and Soviet Union and all that. And so you might say, well, hold on. Hassan Piker can put a hammer and sickle flag in his background, and he's popular and mainstream, and New York Times writes an article about him. A progressive in a MAGA body. I don't know if you saw that. But then if someone else puts a Nazi flag in the background, well, they get, ostracized from society. And it's like, logically, yes, you're right. They are the same, and we shouldn't be treating them differently. But listen to the vibes. The vibes and intuition tell you that, for one reason or another, the hammer and sickle is more socially acceptable. So even though, so you can actually say that the kind of person who hangs a Nazi flag in their background is probably more mentally unstable and degenerate, more so than the average person who puts a hammer and sickle. They're both absurd, but I'd be far more worried about someone who puts a fucking swastika in their background than a hammer and sickle, only because everyone knows the vibes are that it's kind of okay to do the hammer and sickle and not the swastika thing. Now, I think that's changing with Kanye's recent epic single "Hail Hitler." I think we're gonna just see it's just gonna be now that the swastika is the left-wing equivalent of the hammer and sickle, like in terms of how it's being treated. But that's like the white unity versus Black unity thing. Like, well, blacks are a minority and they have been oppressed in the past, and there is a legacy of systemic racism. That's real.
If you're not raised in a stable home with a strong father, you're going to feel insecure. And so when I heard that, what's the guy's name?
Mark Lamont. You want to see it? You want to watch it?
Yeah, let's watch it. When I heard it, I'm going, he had a sucky father.
Probably.
How's that for judgmental?
What do you think of this view?
I want to actually play the part of this lady saying she's a racist.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, but hang on. Sorry, just to be clear, This has got nothing to do with anything you just said. This is a disgusting racist woman who repeatedly spews the N-word, first at a young child, and then at the person taking the video of her, does it with complete impunity, does it numerous times. We are talking about a bona fide, unquestionable racist. And so I don't understand why what you've just said to me bears any relation to white unity or anything that you've just said. She's just a racist. End, isn't she? You wouldn't dispute that.
It's not about her. It's not about her. It's about
white people
coming together and supporting another white person. And it doesn't matter.
Why would you want to support a white racist?
Because I want to support free speech, and you cannot have free speech in the country.
No, that's fine. You can support free speech, but you.
She right about that, Doug? It's free speech, right?
I think she's right.
All right, mainly I'm pausing so I don't get copyright struck, but okay.
You also have to be accountable for what you say. She is. I mean, would you use the N-word out of interest?
Yes.
You would.
I do quite frequently.
You use the N-word quite frequently. Well, why? Other than the fact you're a despicable racist, are you?
Look at the vibes there. Look at the virtue signaling. You're a despicable racist. Like, I would love to talk to Piers Morgan and say, tell me what happened as far as the dopamine hit in your body when you said that. Like, did you feel good in calling someone out as a despicable racist? Like, do you feel good about doing that?
What's your stance on the N-word? How often do you use the N-word? Wait, hold on. Wait, sorry. Doug, how often do you use the N-word?
Do I use it more in public life or private?
Do you ever say the N-word in private? Do you ever say the N-word amongst close friends?
No, I'm being very sincere. I don't think I've ever uttered the word. And I have people who've known me for decades know that I even have trouble saying the F word. Like I just, it's a weakness I have.
It's a weakness. It's a flaw.
Yeah, it's a flaw that I have in my personality, and I have very few flaws. But I cannot say the N word or the F word. I could, but it would take so much work, and I wouldn't mean it. Like it would.
I have absolutely said the N word many a time.
Like my
I've never called anyone the N word.
Okay, but
that is despicable. That is despicable to call someone the N word.
Well, no, it isn't.
Despicable?
Sometimes it depends on the context.
I know you have no moral foundation. So fine.
Okay, you've seen the movie Django Unchained, right?
I have not actually. I was just talking about it with someone. I need to see it.
Okay, but the N-word's used in that movie often. Are you saying in that context an actor using the N-word?
I agree. I say listen, Doug, I played Call of Duty in 2008 through 2011, okay? And I was in the voice chats. I've said the N-word, the F word, and every word in between, okay? And I have actually called people that in the Call of Duty thing. I do think it is, I do think the statement calling a white person calling the black person an N-word, it is despicable. There's virtually no justification.
My kids are half black, half white.
Yep.
I misspoke one night. I meant to say the word piglet, and I said niglet.
And what happened?
And then my kids laughed, and I said, "Yeah, you're my little nigglets."
How long were they in the hospital?
No, they were fine. They laughed their heads off. I laughed. Now, there's an example of a white person. I mean, a progressive left Democrat. They're just, if they could virtue signal their anger towards me right now, they would. Like, what a horrible father.
Yeah, right.
But my son's home right now. I could bring him in. I said, remember that time?
You could call him in right now. Yeah. Well, it's fine. I've listened to it's like one perspective is, it is true, like on average, black people, especially like in, poor parts of the inner city and stuff, it's like they have rough fucking lives.
Yeah, of course.
The idea that some dumb fucking white person saying the N-word is like enough to, it's like it almost belittles the degree to which someone in like the inner city who happens to be black,
but you know why they have horrible lives in the inner city?
Democrats.
Yeah, that's part of the reason. It's because of this feel sorry forism and the racism of low expectations, but it's also because of black African American women.
Say more, Doug, on Black African American women.
Sex, unless you're raped, reproduction, unless you're raped, is in the control of women, not men.
True.
Okay, you agree with that? So when African American women who are in poverty or select a bad man to reproduce with, who's not going to be around and support them, then they become government dependent, and you have cyclical poverty. That is on the Black woman, the African American woman.
Yeah. Sure. It's, I mean, degeneracy is degeneracy no matter who practices.
Now, let me put myself in the shoes of a progressive left woke Democrat person.
Okay.
Doug, what you just said is very hurtful. You're victim blaming for systemic racism.
Right.
Decades of systemic racism. You're saying it's the woman's fault. I'm saying, yes, it is the woman's fault, because no amount of systemic racism can control your vagina. That's on you. That's your responsibility. And so what I'm encouraging, if you have a soft spot, if you care about the African American community, what the left Democrats should say is, we blame you, African American women. Smarten up. Stop having sex. Stop trying to get love from these idiots.
What shouldn't an equal amount go to the men too, calling them degenerates?
Well, not if you, yes, of course, but more goes on the woman for the reason I just gave. Reproduction is controlled by the woman unless she's raped.
I believe that
a man just needs a place to have sex. A woman needs a reason.
It's true.
You learn so much from me, Paul.
I know.
This is why I'm better than you.
I'm constantly learning. Yeah. Although, if we look at average YouTube views,
Oh, shut up.
Let's watch Lily Gaddis say that she's a racist.
Yeah, let's get back to that.
Some would say I am. I guess according to the ADL, I'm a white supremacist. I'm a neo-Nazi.
Yeah, but if you use the N-word repeatedly, you are a racist, then, are you?
Sure, I'll embrace that. If that means forwarding, helping white people achieve freedom of speech, real freedom of speech, which, by the way, Shiloh Hendricks is being attacked on all fronts. They're trying to bring legal charges against her. They're trying to get her children taken away. So you were saying Carmelo Anthony, it doesn't matter. That's
slow it down a bit.
You just said to me you use the N.
I want this at its full value.
Word regularly. In what context? Do you use it with black people?
Yes, if it's appropriate.
When would it be appropriate to use the N-word?
This is my point. She's so incompetent. You can't be the person who's like, I lean into saying the N-word and then be like, yeah, if it's appropriate. Like, you can tell she's on her back foot.
No. I actually think that's a brilliant response.
No,
because there's nothing you can say against it. I use it when I feel like it.
If it's appropriate, well, here's the natural thing. When is it possibly appropriate?
Well, and then they haven't even defined
yes, if it's appropriate.
Yeah. When would it be appropriate to use the N-word? When would it be appropriate?
Call of Duty, Xbox Live chat room.
Anytime I feel like it.
So you're an unashamed racist.
Correct.
Well, do you understand that makes you a despicable human being?
She just bought into his frame.
No. What she did was brilliant. But she should have followed up with this. Okay, I want to do a little role play. I want you to be Piers Morgan.
All right.
And I'll be her.
All right. Douglas. Welcome, Douglas. Hold on, let me read an ad read for elderberry supplements. Are you and your family looking for elderberry supplements? Back to the show.
Okay,
welcome, Douglas.
So I will say correct. What did Piers say? So you're a despicable racist or something?
Yeah, so you're a despicable racist.
Correct. Now,
you didn't say it. She didn't say it as confidently as you did.
But now let me say what she should have said.
What should she have said?
Piers, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being a racist?
Because
can you articulate it for me, Piers?
Yeah. What's wrong with being a racist? Do you hear yourself? What's wrong with being a racist? What's wrong with being a pedophile?
Can you answer the question?
What's wrong with being an
Tell
asshole?
me why it's bad to be a racist.
You are. I will give you enough rope to hang yourself. Oh, sorry, that's fucking. That's racist.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I shouldn't say that.
But as soon as you ask a person to articulate without the emotions,
why is being racist bad? Why is being a pedophile bad, Doug?
Okay, I can answer that because what you're doing is you're taking the innocence away from a young kid.
Why is
that bad? You're physically harming them.
Why is that bad?
Why is that bad? Because we do, as empathetic Homo sapiens, we do not want that. Now, that's where it stops. Now, see how I answered the pedophile in the one. Now do it for racism. Why is racism bad? In this case, the racism was using the N-word. Why is that bad?
See, this is an example of an autistic person not being able to read the room. If I say to you, if we're walking down the street and there's an ugly baby in a stroller, you and I are walking, I point to you and I say in front of the baby's mom, "That's an ugly baby." Why is that wrong?
Okay, but I would still say it's wrong because
it's true.
I would still say it's bad, but it's not as bad as pedophilia or murder, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
What she should have done is she should have put Piers Morgan on the back foot and have him basically defend that what we're really talking about here is hurt feelings. We're not talking about lynching. We're not talking about.
I agree. I agree that if she was, first off, if she was competent, I should also preface this whole thing by saying, I think she's a terrible person still and a moron. And I do, the whole discussion about race is it does need room to expand. And I do think there's plenty of double standards on a lot of stuff. She is a fucking horrible ambassador for making the case.
No, I actually think what she's done here, she's basically said, you can call me racist and it does not bother me. Now you want, but I'm speaking on behalf of Piers. Piers, you want me to feel bad for being a racist, but I don't, because I'm not killing anybody. I'm not harming anybody. I'm not taking away anybody's jobs. All I'm doing is using my speech to make people's feelings bad.
Okay, but the mistake you are making is this is what you would do if you were put in that context. And here's the thing: you
Brilliant.
you do not create racial harm, right? In fact, I like to say that nobody loves black women more than I do, but you actually married one, so you're actually in a better position. Yeah, exactly. You're actually in a better position to say that than I am. So you are saying, well, if I was in that, because you get called racist even though you're not actually,
it doesn't bother me.
harming black people, right? Yeah, because it's not, because in some fundamental sense it's not true. This Lily Gaddis chick is just a freak who is she's out of her depth. She's talking about white unity. She's just trying to clout farm. Right, and so it's like, well, she actually is fucking.
Well, she's actually
useless.
saying that she's actually saying the same things as the far left is saying. The black safe spaces. She's saying, well, there should be white. Spaces.
This is the appreciable difference here. Now, this is the question of: is there appreciable difference between white unity and black unity? There is something to be said about being a minority in a majority. For example, if I was in Japan. If I lived in Japan, I probably would look for or feel affinity for other like white American English speakers in Japan. I'd probably but
seek them out. Mostly because they speak English, so you can communicate better.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you were in Japan and you saw me, but I didn't know English, let's say I was German or whatever, and you saw a Japanese person who speaks fluent English, you would hang out with the Japanese guy.
Yeah, of course. Nobody knows Japanese more than I do. True. Okay, but that's true.
So getting back to this, what's this woman's name?
Lily Gaddis.
Lily. I think what she did here was brilliant, because basically all Piers can say to her is, you're despicable. And basically she's saying, you can't hurt me with your words. So another good response she could have given to Piers is, okay, so you're just a despicable racist. And she goes, yes, and your point? So, get to the point of what makes it despicable.
Well, hold on. Okay, look, see, this is a problem with people like you, Doug. You people. You know what I'm referring to when I say you people? Presuppositionalists, okay? You're a fucking presuppositionalist. That's what you are.
Whenever I say something brilliant that makes perfect sense, you go to this.
Yeah, because it's only true in the context of let's spend 40 minutes going down to we can't take anything for granted. Most people would agree it's bad to be racist, and I would agree with that. I know people who genuinely harbor hatred towards black people. It's viscerally disgusting to hear it. I'm sure. If if you were out with your wife and kid and some skinhead came up to your kid and called them, I don't even want to say the kind of slurs that they call the children of mixed race people.
Yeah.
You'd be like fucking pissed.
No.
Really?
Really? That's
if you
how
were
dead
out
inside I am.
Okay, well.
Now, if he would threaten physical harm, then that's a different story. But like my son told me that he's been called the N-word at school before, and I don't know if it was joking or not, but he said he just laughed it off. Like my kids have been raised in such a way that you cannot harm them with words.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But it's still.
I wish every child could have a father like me.
I do too. But hold on. It's still bad to be racist. It's still bad to.
I will challenge that.
You would agree. Hold on.
I'll challenge you on that.
No. Let's do the hypotheticals. Okay.
Okay. I'd say in general, yes, but I will push back.
Okay. There's a video of this white guy who his whole thing is like saying the N-word and pushing boundaries and all that. Okay. Which is like, okay, fine. You need those type of characters to attack religious fundamentalism, which the whole anti-racism is a religion. Okay. This guy literally there's a white mom and her black child, like toddler, like 4-year-old, walking down the street, and this guy comes up, filmed himself, and starts screaming at the child. You're again, I don't even want to say it.
Mm-hmm.
That is like the epitome of disgusting psychopathic antisocial behavior. That's bad.
I agree.
We agree. Okay. That's racist.
Yes.
And it wasn't just and it's not just him screaming at a child. That's just deranged. It was the fact that he called the child. It's not the N-word. It's
but let's
the
be
M-word. It's
clear.
Call it a mutt essentially.
Well, the screaming part would scare the child, but let's be clear, the child probably wouldn't understand the actual words or the meaning behind them, and that he should take it. Sure. Okay. So, but that's aside. But I want to push back on, you said racism is bad. Yeah. And I'm gonna push back on that and say that not always. And I'm sure you agree with that because you're intellectual. Yeah. But for your viewers who have this knee-jerk reaction that no, racism is always bad, listen to me and ponder what I'm about to say.
Let's ponder.
Imagine a case, and if you're smart, you can imagine things. Imagine a case that someone thinks black people are intellectually inferior to white people and Asians. Okay. And they truly believe that false belief. And they view all black people in that way.
Well, hold on. We have to establish, is that a false belief? Because it is indisputable that if you have people who self-identify as black, white, or whatever, that on the whole, people who are black score lower on IQ tests. We know that.
Yeah, but then we have to get into whether those tests are good and what IQ really measures and what about emotional IQ.
The IQ tests are accurate.
Can I finish my hypothetical?
Well, the question is how much of that is genetic.
I'll take, okay. For you, the racist, I'll say it's not a false belief. Okay, right. So anyhow, to be clear,
I share this perspective, by the way.
I'm also American.
Go ahead.
So I'm talking to the people who lean left right now, who are, or maybe centrists. And I'm giving you an example of where racism can actually be good.
All right, hit me.
So this person believes that all black people are inferior. Let's say even
morally
inferior and intellectually inferior.
Yeah.
But they use their racism because they feel sorry for black people. They use their racism to help them get ahead, to help them pay their electric bill, to feed them, to get them a job, because they're like an inferior dog compared to a German Shepherd. Like they're not a good breed. And so they use their racism
to benefit
to actually increase black people's well-being. So here we got an example. And I believe that this is partially true with the woke left. They actually think that black people are inferior, and that's why they need reparations. They need help. That's why they need affirmative action, because they can't do it on their own. So is that?
Do you think that racism is good in that case?
No. In the case of with
based on a false premise.
If you're talking about affirmative action, no, I don't. I think it does more.
Okay, that's fair.
So, but basically, there's a case where racism is in an individual, but they're using it to do good, to increase well-being, or at least you can say their motives are pure to help the weaker breed of Homo sapien.
What are you asking me? If I think that's good or bad?
Do you agree that that's a case of racism that actually can have good outcome?
I don't know. It's hard to say in terms of like, well, is it racist to say that are positive stereotypes racist?
Well, this is a negative stereotype that leads to a positive outcome. You're inferior.
I would say
I need to help you.
I would say the only way it could lead to a positive outcome is if it were true.
No. The positive outcome is I'm hungry. I'm going to feed you because you're black. Because you're not smart enough to get your own job and pay your own food. So let me help you. Now the white person, if they're hungry,
you know what? No, I'll tell you why. First off, I can tell you're not a deontologist, are you?
No,
you don't have a deontological bend to you. I can tell, which is reasonable, albeit somewhat unfortunate. Because the question is, what is the long-term effect of having that belief? And you could say that, well, in the long term, it's actually bad because you foster this false sense.
That's why I like you, Paul. You're an intellectual. You're looking short-term benefit outcome versus long-term, and you got to wait about.
And really, and arguably, deontological virtues are just heuristics for long-term utilitarian outcomes.
I've asked this question to some African Americans on my show, and it's a very uncomfortable question. And here it is. You have a choice to live in two neighborhoods. Neighborhood one is KKK members.
Yeah.
But in this hypothetical thought experiment, they do zero physical harm to you. But in their minds, they view you as inferior. But they will never.
Do they look at you like?
No, they hide.
Sneering?
No, they will smile at you, but you know.
Right, they're not.
Hang on,
KKK
Paul.
members.
Paul, listen to the hypothetical.
Okay.
So you have a choice. You're an African American. You can live in a neighborhood of KKK members where they all have bad thoughts about you. They view you as inferior, but they will not touch you or your family, steal your property, or harm you. That's neighborhood one. Neighborhood two is to live in the hood with other African Americans where the crime rate's high. Question, Mr. African American, would you rather live in the KKK neighborhood or in the hood? That is a very uncomfortable question for an African American.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, this is your fundamental problem, as I outlined it in the very first interaction you and I had. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, you don't like my hypotheticals.
It's not that I don't like your hypotheticals. It's that your hypotheticals are so detached from reality that they no longer become
but
relevant.
that you're missing the purpose of the hypothetical. The purpose of the hypothetical is to show the difference between thought crime and real crime.
No. A hypothetical. If I go, Doug, imagine a scenario where time travel is capable, okay? And we go back and kill baby Hitler. Now we're in the current world and we're dealing with the consequences as such. What is the moral thing to do? It's like, your hypothetical is ridiculous because it presupposes a reality that does not exist. Time travel is impossible. It's paradoxical because if we go back and kill baby Hitler.
Let's see how quickly I answered. You kill Hitler in that thought experiment.
My point is when you say there's a bunch of KKK members who just they're friendly to you, but it's like that. There's no such thing as a KKK member that's hanging around people and being friendly. You could here's the
that is untrue.
Here's the hypothetical.
Daryl Davis.
Here's the hypothetical.
An example of someone.
I love Daryl Davis. Listen, we're going all over the place right now. Okay.
That's why I wanted to bring it back to the N-word.
Let's get back to the substance here. The N-word.
So I think that people on the left, they want to virtue signal that this is a despicable, horrible thing to call a 5-year-old N-word. You probably haven't done any harm to the 5-year-old.
Oh my God.
the harm you've done is to the parents and the people around.
You know what I think?
Because the 5-year-old can't even comprehend probably what's been happening.
All right, and I know you won't get offended by this, and I need you to answer me honestly. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being none and 10 being entirely, how autistic do you think you are?
2. I've been tested.
Really? You've been tested? What'd they say? What was your score? 2 thumbs up?
I forget my exact score, but I've been tested for all the things people accuse me of.
By who?
Oh, by
online tests.
Oh, yeah.
I've taken a few online tests.
I'm actually average empathy. My compassion is very low, but my empathy is pretty much.
I gathered that from this.
Yeah, and
I think that what you don't see. Here's the thing. This is the problem. The problem is, like, you say, what's an example? That 5-year-old child, or that child, shouldn't get offended from hearing the N-word or whatnot.
I'm saying the child wasn't offended. I don't know for sure, but it's a 5-year-old, for goodness sake. So when people scream and whine and moan, what a horrible, despicable thing to say to a 5-year-old. What they're really saying is that the adults in the room had their feelings hurt. That's all.
Okay. Do you understand the gap that exists between you and the average person?
Yeah, I'm way better.
Yes, right. I would say actually, no, this is a fundamental flaw, is the fact that you think that the gap between you.
No, I know exactly where I'm at. 15% of people.
I know this is the problem. I shouldn't even, really, I shouldn't be platforming you, Doug. This is the problem.
The thing is, like, it's so difficult to, I guess, hurt me in a way, because I know that intellectually I'm about the top 85. There's like 15%. If we go in a room of 100 people, there's maybe 14 people smarter than me. I know this because I've been tested so much, because I have 2 master's degrees. I've taken all the standardized tests.
What are your master's degrees in? Finance?
Analytical chemistry and finance. Yeah. MBA in finance.
No, finance. Fucking Bitcoin, Dogecoin type stuff.
No.
Hold on.
So I know that there's people smarter than me.
Did you take the ACT? You take the ACT?
No, I didn't have to take the ACT. I took the GRE, the GMAT.
What's your IQ? Do you know your IQ?
It's about, depending on the test, it's ranges between 130 and 140, which is not that high. It's just high.
I've taken an IQ test before, Doug.
You're smarter than me? Are you one of the 15?
I'm not going to tell you. 100. Probably more than 15, Doug. Let me ask you a question. Put yourself in the shoes of someone who is interested in communicating ideas properly and getting people to see the things that they see in the world. Okay. Do you think that making the argument that racism is not actually bad in and of itself is a good idea?
No. But if I'm talking to someone who's intellectual, then, like, I would view Piers Morgan as someone on the intellectual side.
Sure.
Okay. So I would talk to him and say, hey, just humor me. Articulate for me why racism is bad. And then that will get him thinking to, well, it harms people. Well, how does it harm people? Well, unemployment, violence, that sort of thing. And then bring it back to the N-word. Okay, well, what did any of that happen here? No. So what we're really talking about is some adults being hurt in their feelings.
I have repeatedly said, I don't think I am racist. Okay, 100%. I see
all white people are racist.
Fucking no. Well, I'm particularly racist. Every time I see a goddamn white progressive open their mouth and get all self-hating, it's gross, and I think they're inferior to me.
Okay, but that's an emotional. That's like it could be instinctive. It's like smelling soured milk. Like you kind of gag a little bit, but realize that's all it is.
Oh, perfect analogy though. The smell of soured milk is bad because underneath it is actual bad sour milk if you drink it. And someone who engages in racism has a damaged soul. and is corrupt, is a bad person. You don't want to.
I don't believe the
with
soul
that.
exists. So
Okay, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, if someone is willing to call a black child the N-word, you can infer things about their character and whether or not it's reasonable to associate with them.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So,
I've never disagreed with that.
Famous anti-racist, PineCreek Doug. Speaking on behalf of.
But what I'm encouraging people to do is to put it on a scale of really bad things versus not so bad things. Is it bad to call a 5-year-old the N-word? Yes.
I would say that's up there.
But almost any reasonable person on this planet would admit it's nowhere close to killing someone.
Of course,
it's nowhere close. So this whole virtue signaling that is about we need to love Black people more. This is the type of virtue signaling that the African Americans have had it so hard in the United States that we need to comfort them more than the average person. Now, this to me is revolting. The soured milk thing, because basically it's saying that you are weaker. You need our love. Like, someone can call me the most offensive thing and nobody will bat an eye because he's a white male, privileged, upper middle class. Yeah, no problem. But African Americans, we got to feel sorry for them.
Okay, let's strip it from a generalized view for a moment, and let's take a African American inner city kid, okay, who did not grow up with a father.
Big problems.
Correct. It is correct to have lower expectations for that person, isn't it? Because unless you disagree with the data that clearly shows that not being raised with a father leads to negative outcomes later on in life.
I'm pondering your question. You say it again. It is better to have low expectations?
No, it is correct to have lower.
It is correct.
On average, people who are born without fathers have a harder, more difficult time in life.
Yeah.
For all the reasons that is just self-evident of not having a father. So it would be reasonable to say, actually, okay. No, we can't. We do have to display.
It's a good question. Let me think about it. Let me think. I would say that yes, you're right. It is correct to have that expectation. However, I would say pragmatically, don't do the reverse. Like, give them hope. Have expectations high of them. Encourage personal responsibility.
Okay, but now it's an empirical question. Now you said have high expectations. Do all the things you just said. Okay, which of these are more like? Now this is a fact of the matter question. For someone who was born disadvantaged because they didn't grow up with a father, which of these interventions will have a higher efficacy? What you just said, or allocating resources, doing things like
what I just said? And
how do you know?
Because I can look at history. So, for example,
I can look at history. Anyone can look at history.
Listen to me, Paul. I'm going to ask a question and then I'll blab. Which demographic in the United States has the highest suicide rate?
White men. No, it's Native Americans.
Native Americans.
Correct.
Now, Native Americans, if they live on the reservation, get everything paid for by the federal government. If they live on the reservation. Food, shelter, clothing, education, everything. When you give people free stuff, it takes away their dignity and their will to even live.
I agree.
So my theory is...
No, hold on. There's nuance. Okay. When you keep people perpetually on a system of free stuff, you can have like unemployment and stuff. Temporary.
Sure. Yeah. So my theory is using the indigenous people of both Canada and the United States, looking at that situation and the highest suicide rates. My gut instinct is that it's better to do what I said, encourage personal responsibility, set expectations high, say, yes, you came from a crappy home, but you can do this. You got this. In fact, you can even become a millionaire on minimum wage if you play your cards right. And here's how you do it.
Do you believe everyone can become a millionaire?
If they come from a stable home, yes.
Okay, but if they don't come from a stable home, there's some people who will never be a millionaire.
Like, for example, my son and daughter both make minimum wage, although my son makes big tips. And they're on pace to have $100,000 saved in a couple of years on minimum wage, maybe 5 years for my daughter, because I'm a good father and I say, look, you can live in my home because you're my responsibility.
I see.
And you can live here rent-free and food-free. But you then have to save your money, and once you hit $100,000, then you leave.
I see. So the reason
and you don't touch that 100,000, and then you add maybe $500 a month to that 100,000, and by the time you're 65, you will have 1.8 million.
The reason that they can save $100,000 is because you give them money,
right? Because they come from a home where a dad is going to take care of them.
Correct. So yeah. So then the point, but that's the point is, fatherless children do not psychologically are damaged because of the fatherlessness. We agree, right?
Right. So, Kate, now your question now is how to fix that, right?
Yeah.
Step one, you have to convince the far left Democrats to actually start blaming Black mothers, African American mothers, for their choices.
So,
in other words, you gotta.
No, see, this is autistic. I'll tell you why.
No, this is not autistic.
It is autistic.
This is the
I'll tell you why. No, those are not mutually exclusive, Doug. That's precisely the point. The autistic person is always in possession of the truth.
Let's talk about the truth more.
No. You got to contextualize the truth. Because you said women control, outside of rape, women control reproduction. True. Right. Okay. If you want, what is the outcome we're trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve the outcome of convincing the left to stop supporting, enabling and encouraging free sex without consequence, right?
To encourage personal responsibility.
Encourage personal responsibility. Okay. I would posit, even though it is true autistically, if it's just the women, it's the women who have the control. From a messaging, if you want to get people to buy into your memes, you should approach it it shouldn't just be black. It should be men and women. Both of them are it's degenerate for men to sleep around and women to do it as well. If you pick one, it's like, well, what the fuck? You're just going after black. It's just like,
I hear what you're saying. You're saying that if you pick on the women, then you're going to turn too many people off.
Correct.
Even though what I said is true.
Correct. Which you agree with.
Yeah.
All right. So the true autist, which is me, you're the midwit autist. I'm the true autist, which is I take into account the fact that it's not just the truth itself. It's how the truth is communicated.
Right. But the thing is, we're basically two right-wing guys, right?
Allegedly. Yeah.
So basically, I would go to an intellectual, more dead inside Democrat. There's very few of them, and I would say, look, you know the best way to do this, but here's the gist of it. You basically can't baby and pamper and blame systemic racism in the year 2025 anymore. You can't, when a Black African American says slavery, lynching, like the guy did on Piers Morgan, you say, boo-hoo, grow up already. We're in 2025, and you're talking about something that happened 200-300 years ago. This is why a lot of Jews are hated, by the way, getting to the anti-Semitism. It's because the Jews have been persecuted throughout history and have been highly successful. So they're a case study in how this whole boohoo whining is bad and setting high expectations good, because in their culture, they do that.
Yeah, true. But also now they're doing the boohoo whining about anti-Semitism.
Well, of course, there's some of them that do, yeah.
You want to talk about gay people now?